Hi, and welcome to How to Love Living. I am trying something new today, so I'm going to be recording the video off my monitor here, my iMac, and then I am also recording audio. So I'm doing the whole recording here. I'm going to edit it and put it together on YouTube, and I'm excited. I am curious to see how this format works. Hopefully it comes out pretty good. Well, welcome to How to Love Living. This podcast and series is about really how to improve your life. So it's things you can do to work through and improve your life experience. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm taking information that I have learned over time and I'm going through and sharing that out there. Of course, this podcast doesn't replace professional advice. This is just life learned experience, but I think there's some validity to the things I discuss on the podcast, and I'm excited to share that out and kind of share that with everyone. In this episode, we're going to talk about the dark night of the soul and just kind of the things that impact the dark night of the soul and the kind of things that we should be aware of when we're going through the dark night of the soul. And really, what is the dark night of the soul? So what is the dark night of the soul? This is an interesting kind of question. This is something that there's a lot of delineation in figuring out when things are just rough and tough and like just a struggle versus the reality of when things get untenable and, just things are pretty, it's just pretty rough. And so when we talk about the dark night of the soul, what I want to talk about is I want to talk about what it is and talk about how you navigate through it. And the way I'll delineate is we do go through tough times. So we'll go through and we'll have some struggles in working through the dark night of the soul. This can be that, we just have regular life struggles, and the life struggles are those things where, we have something bad happen, but it isn't a major bad, it's just kind of a bad. Or we have really, really major bad things happen. And I would consider delineating it with when you go through something bad, you can navigate through it and it doesn't affect your whole life. When something really, really bad happens, that can really impact your life, and it can put you into a new stage of personal development, meaning that when you get through this bad experience, you're going to be a different person on the other side. And so that is what I would call the dark night of the soul, is going through some very, very difficult experience that is just too much. And you can really look at it as the dark night of the soul is a stage in personal development when a person undergoes a difficult and significant transition into a deeper perception of life. And so your life perspective changes from that experience. And so example of things that can impact that is things like divorce or things like losing a job, or things like, having something terrible happen in your life, like losing a family member. Some of these things can really be these dark nights of the soul. And I'll talk a bit about, what kind of impacts it. So, as we grow up and grow older, we go through moments like this. And I don't believe that you just have one dark night of the soul and you're done with it. You really do have several of these over your lifespan that I would truly define as dark nights of the soul. This could be, like I say, in divorce. This could be a death in a family. This could be, going into a new career or losing a job. And so usually what happens emotionally is it's exhausting. It's demoralizing, it's miserable, and it seems impossible to move through. And when I say impossible to move through, kind of picture yourself going through a swamp and trying to navigate through a swamp just with your, legs, and you're just putting one foot in front of the other, and you're barely moving forward. It's very, kind of just tough. That's what I kind of pictured emotionally, is that you're just going to struggle with it, and it's just going to be one of those things that happens. The good news is you're not alone. So you're not the one, that really, you're not alone on that. And you shouldn't feel alone. And that's kind of one of the things that, I want to discuss a little bit, is that we're all going through these dark nights of the soul. This isn't distinctively my experience, and it's not distinctively someone else's experience. It's just the nature of humanity that we go through these difficult times, this change in careers, relationships, environments. This is kind of the things that create these dark nights of the soul. And it could be driven by you just as much as circumstances. So you could be changing things in your life for the better, but you're making choices that are very hard. So you're making choices, like, let's say that you realize that your relationship isn't working out for you, and you have to make that choice to leave it. You have to make a hard decision. And that is a dark night of the soul. But hopefully what happens is you come out of it better, and you come out of it in a better perspective on what that is and how it happens and all that. This could be career changes. This could be that you're changing your career, that you're looking for a new thing to do, and it pushes you into a lot of uncomfortability, because then you have to wonder, well, am I going to be successful? Am I going to see the success I seen in my previous career? Am I going to be happier? Am I making a mistake? And those kind of things really do push us into those dark moments where we can really just struggle. And why do we have these moments in life? And I would say this is a difficult, deep, significant transition into a deeper perception of life. And it's necessary change that you're going through that is specific to your life's journey. So we're all on this life journey, and we're all going through these things in life. And, each person's experience in life is completely different. And even if you come from the same background, you come from the same, environments, your life experience is going to be different. And that is going to drive your character, and this is going to drive who you are. And so these dark nights of the soul is a way for you to grow. And they feel very difficult, but it's an opportunity for growing. And one solace you can get from it: you're not alone. Everyone goes through these dark nights of the soul, and they do seem impossible. So, what is the difference between Dark Night of the Soul event versus just life? And I think the most delineating thing, being that I've just gone through sort of a Dark Night of the Soul, is the delineating event is, you feel the event in your core. Like, you feel it deep in your heart, deep in your mind, deep in your soul. And, it's just one of those things where you feel depressed, you may feel overwhelmed, you feel, just a lot of different feelings. And so those feelings can, be overwhelming. When you're dealing with just life, it's less impactful. It doesn't mean that it's, not a significant thing that you're dealing with in life. It's just less impactful than a Dark Night of the Soul event. The Dark Night of the Soul event is one of those events where you're reconciling your perceptions, your reality versus what's happening. And you're character changes from that. And it can be very tough. It can be a tough thing to navigate through for sure. You know, I felt lost going through the Dark Nights of the Soul events. Very lost, and I felt very overwhelmed, and I felt very exhausted. I felt powerless, and I felt hurt. But you just have to kind of go through it. And sometimes there's no, well, with Dark Night of the Soul events, there's no quick and easy answer. You just have to navigate through it. You have to go through and just be with the Dark Night of the Soul. You can't force it through quicker. You can't, you know, get through it quickly. It's one of those things where you have to do it in a way that's authentic to you and heal from it in a way that's authentic to you. And so that means that you're navigating through. For me, it's a navigating through it. I get a lot of sleep. I'm trying to do a lot of reconciliation. I'm doing a lot of just work to self-reflect and try to learn what I could do differently and what things I can gain from it. And when I was younger, I hated it. So when I was younger, it was so painful, and it was just it sometimes it would be like a month or 2 months of life just navigating through it. As I've gotten older, it's something where I understand it. It's still painful. It's not less painful, but I also know that I can get on the other side. I also know that I can navigate through it. But you want to make sure that when you're going through these events, that you're making the right decisions, that you're really cognizant and really learning from the experience that you're trying to have. And, these lessons are soul lessons, in my opinion. And so then you need to really take what you're learning from it and, learn and grow and become a stronger person from it. You can also look at these as like a black swan event. And I really do think they are black swan events. And this comes from you can look it up online. I'll include a link to what the Black Swan. I think it's Tassim is the author of Black Swan, and basically what it is a Black Swan event is a rare event that happens that completely disrupts everything, and definitely in a night of the Dark Night of the Soul. Hope I've been saying that properly, but oh well. Event. It's a Black Swan event for you personally. You are going through something that's tough. You're going through something that can be challenging, and it's not something easily overcome. It can be unpredictable, and it can have potentially severe consequences for you. The thing I'll argue is that especially with the severe consequences, although very painful, there can be values and lessons and things learned from that. And the other piece I go back to is that even in these painful, severe consequences, you're not alone. Others have gone through this. Others have gone through worse. And some people define it as grit, being able to navigate. I don't think it's grit, in my opinion, but that's my opinion. I look at it as more like just suffering, and just suffering in a deep, impactful way that it's just, you just have to navigate through it, and you have to navigate through the suffering, and the suffering can get less with effort. Yeah, but a Black Swan event is an unpredictable event that is beyond what is normally expected of a situation, has potentially severe consequences. So how do you cope? What things do you do to cope through the Black Swan event and through this dark night of the soul? One I say is self-care. So number one is taking care of yourself and taking care of your health and taking care of you and putting a lot of effort into that thing. So it's going through and doing all this self-care and doing the things that, help you navigate through these dark nights of the soul. And that self-care is number one. It's taking care of your health, taking that deep dive and really rummaging around in your brain and trying to figure out what lessons there are to learn from this, what things, are the takeaways that you need to take away from this terrible thing that's been going on. I like to journal. Like to write. I like to talk to friends. I like to talk to myself and just do a lot of reflection. Usually in these Dark Night of the Soul events, they're slow, and it's more of a mental thing that it is like the world just crashing down on you. And in fact, in a way, the world crashing down on you, like something bad happening very quickly, is um, probably a little bit easier. I would argue that you probably wouldn't learn the lessons that you do when you go through a Dark Night of the Soul event, where it's a slow and monotonous kind of thing where you have to navigate through it. So I'm a big thing on journaling. So one thing I recommend is doing morning pages. There is a author that talks about that. And basically, what she discusses is getting up every morning and writing into a journal things that you'll never read again. Like it's almost like clearing some energy out of your mind. And I believe that. I do that every day. I go through, or I strive to do that every day. I go through and do my morning pages. I just journal and I never go back and look at them. And they could have negative things, they could have a lot of positive things. I think doing a gratitude list as well is helpful because then it helps you realize the things that are going well in your life and things that you can kind of take away that are good things that you can take away with. I think physical activities are very good. I think getting out and running, getting out and hiking, walking, um, getting fresh air and getting into the nature. When you get out there, though, I recommend that you don't wear headphones if you can possibly do that and do some walks alone. Or if you're going hiking and walking, have some moments of quiet time so you can have those moments of just reflection. Getting out into nature and seeing nature and being there in nature can really give you moments of good self-reflection. Next episode, I am going to talk a little bit about the shadow self and how to have conversations with the shadow self. And I think that really having these Dark Night of the Soul events kind of parallels with understanding and talking to your shadow self. So in next week's episode, I'll go into what the shadow self is, and then I'll go into how to have those episodes. That will be on the next episode of How to Love Living. But getting out there and doing those things, getting out into nature, getting fresh air, I think is really important. Do things that feel right to you. So like for me, taking baths, watching TV shows, movies, things that make you feel like you're getting back to normal. Those can be really good to kind of cope through it. What you can do to navigate through, and what does the other side look like? Can you force it to be done with? You cannot force it to be done with. It's a process that you has to play out naturally. You can't force the Dark Night of the Soul to be done. Some people can, but they lose a lot of value out of it. You have to let it play out naturally, and you have to navigate through it in a way that's authentic to you and not to other people. So, of course, everyone has their opinions about this, but these journeys are very individual journeys. So there's no right or wrong answer. Someone could navigate through it and do it quickly if they have the wherewithal. I don't have that wherewithal. It takes me a while to navigate through these things. And so I would argue that that's, where you'll be at. So sitting on the fence. So sometimes what will happen is you'll get into these dark night of the soul events, and some of the decisions that you have to make aren't going to come right away, or you have to be in this place where you're quote unquote sitting on the fence. I am of the personality that I do not like sitting on the fence at all. I hate sitting on the fence. But there are sometimes decisions that have to be made where you're not going to get a choice. You're not getting a choice to sit on the fence, or get a choice. Sometimes you have to just sit on the fence and you have to be with that. I would argue that being able to be uncomfortable and not make a decision sometimes is a very strong thing to learn. It's a very strong characteristic to learn in not making a decision and being comfortable with the uncomfortableness of not making decisions. And sometimes there's not the right decision, or sometimes you got to wait for paths to open up to put you into the right position to make a decision. Patience is a great virtue, is the reality of it. And that's kind of how I look at it. Sometimes you have to get very comfortable with not knowing. Remember, you're going through a fundamental shift in your life, and it is very difficult. And, established and known aspects of you are not known anymore. And so it'll be difficult to make a decision until you understand these new, things that are kind of rising out of you, these new characteristics, these new ways of seeing things. You got to let them mature so that you can make decisions out of that mindset versus your previous mindset. And when you're going through a dark night of the soul event, you're changing. Your character's changing. When I'm going through a dark night of the soul event, things I would normally accept or things that are known quantities can change. And once your perception changes, or once things change, there's no undo button. Like once you have your perception change, or once the variables change, there's no undo button. So you're going through it regardless. It's hard and it's a burden, and it definitely is hard and it's definitely a burden. But I'm going to argue that on the other side, once you kind of heal and once you get to that place where you're in a good spot, it's going to be such a wonderful time. Every dark night of the soul event I've had, it's been better on the other side. It's just very uncomfortable going through it. And I do believe that we go through stages of grief. And, I think that grief is something that, we have to reconcile with all these changes that are happening in our life. And especially if there's such integral changes, and being that change in career, change in relationship, change in how you see the world. It may be something that is very deep and emotional for you that other people are just like, whatever. But that doesn't matter. It's what affects you and how you deal with it. No one can tell you what's right or wrong. Only you can tell you what's right or wrong. And you got to trust your instincts. The good news is that you are not alone. Someone has gone through what you're going through before, and they'll go through it in the future. So even though you may feel it's very distinct and different to you, yes, we all life different we have different circumstances. We have all these things going on. Reality is that, it's usually something that I've gone through, you will go through, something that you go through, I may not go through, but someone down the line will. So, it's just the way it works. And so, as you go through these stages of grief, and I really do think you go through some stages of grief as you're moving from mourning your previous experience to going into the new. You go through denial and anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And that's just kind of the nature of how it works. Spirituality is something that I will bring up here. I know people get really weird about spirituality depending on where you're coming from. I look at spirituality this way. You could look at it as just finding peace in something greater than yourself, um, or letting it go into the universe and being at peace with that. Um, I used not to be a spiritual person. I did grow up in a religious background. Through my 20s, I moved away from religion. In my 30s, I didn't care either way. I was just like, whatever. In my 40s, I'm moving towards a more spiritual perspective on life, but not a religious, just more spiritual. And I lean upon that spirituality during times like this that helped me immensely in my understanding of myself, my connection to the universe, and all those things. And, you know, I think that with the spirituality thing, it's just sometimes it is good to be able to release something like a burden and release that energy and put it out into the universe and say, okay, I am putting, I'm putting my faith in the universe that, you know, everything will work out, and I look at things, statements like, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So for the crappy things I'm paying penance for now, there will be good things coming in the future. And I really do believe that. I do believe that sort of stuff. So for me, I do lean upon spirituality a bit, but it's all kind of amorphous. So there's no written rules or anything like that. That can be authentic to you and your life experience and how you work with life. Um, this is a journey. This is a journey that this is your specific journey. Um, I've looked at the challenges as just part of life's journey, and although difficult, it is a gift. Going through difficult change can lead you to beautiful realities in the future. Personal growth is very important, and the dark night of the soul moments are some of the largest personal growth moments you can experience. They're very important, and I do believe they're very, very important. If you don't have those dark night of the soul events, I'll argue that you're robbing yourself of growth and experience. And part of it is sometimes people really try to float under the radar. They don't try to, you know, challenge the status quo. They don't try to make things better for themselves. They rather just accept things. But if you can challenge it and go through these horrible events, you can grow from it and you can be in a better place in the long run. So I would argue the Dark Night of the Soul events are something to understand, that you're going to grow and you're going to be a stronger person for it. You know, every day when you're going through them, it's getting up and putting one foot in front of the other. And I really do believe that. Like, ultimately, there's no right or wrong way to go through these. And like I said earlier, it's authentic to each individual person. You're just going to get up, put up your foot one in front of the other. Love your family, love your friends, love your life experience. Things do get better, but depending on you and your specific life journey, it may be shorter or longer time to get through to the end of a Dark Night of Soul event or a Black Swan event. It just takes a while sometimes. Like for me, going through them can be, something where it's like a 3 or 4 month experience, and it's very painful. But in fact, I'm going through one kind of right now, and it's very painful. And that's what inspired me to write about this, is because I'm going through it, and it's good, but it's painful. It's hard. You know, the first one I went through took me a whole year to navigate through. and it's just life. It's, but once on the other side, my life's perspective completely changed as a different person on the other side of each event. There's no way to force them that I know of, and they happen when they happen. So there's, it's just getting up and putting one foot in front of the other, doing all the work that will help you, and doing that shadow self-talk. I'll talk about that next week. I'll go through that. And I definitely will link into the morning pages, and I'll link in also about the Black Swan, and I'll link the book in there. It's a really, really good book. It's a bit dense, meaning that there's a lot to it. I think the book's like 1,200 pages on the Black Swan, I believe. But it's very dense material because they talk about it from a world perspective, a company perspective, a personal perspective. So it's a good book, though. It's like one of the, I guess, like a basic kind of book in that it's like a basics of life, but no one really talks about it. So it's definitely really good. This is a life's journey. These are lessons that change your soul. I want to emphasize that again. Your soul will change. Who you are and how you participate in the world will change after these events. They're life experiences that need to be experienced in this deep way to root these lessons deep in you, and they change your soul at the deep level as well. Don't deny this journey. Look at it as like a lesson, like a really tough test that you have to learn and grow from. Peace, I love you all, and, it does get better. You just have to keep getting up every day, putting one foot in front of the other. And, in the end, life does get better. It does get better. Each time you go through these, it gets better, So I guess in summary, what I'd like to point out is, it's hard. You have to be patient. Don't fight the dark night of the soul. Do that self-care. Get outdoors. Go through those stages of grief. Realize you just have to put one foot in front of the other. And this is part of life. This is part of that life experience. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode or listening to it. If you were listening to it on the podcast, definitely check out the YouTube channel, How to Love Living. I've got a PowerPoint presentation. It's new, so I'm doing video here, and I'm doing PowerPoint presentation here, and I got my iPad there. So I got like everything to kind of keep it all together. I got my iPad showing me what I want to talk about on each slide. Just if this message connected with you, please link, like, and subscribe. And if it did connect it, please like it, because then that will get more folks' attention to my channel. Please share the podcast with your friends, and regardless of the format you're watching or listening. And thank you very much for watching this week's episode. And definitely leave a comment. You can also contact me on my website, howtoloveliving.com. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye. Well, next episode. Bye. I do Option Command 2. Okay, where is Camtasia? Oh, good, it recorded. Okay. So now I go to audio and